Welcome back. We're here to do an update. Yes, I have not announced I'm coming live, but we are coming live. I've sat with this energy for a little bit and I've been unpacking it. I have put a poll up on YouTube, and what I do find really interesting is when I ask questions and put polls, it's, to you guys as the public. Obviously, those of us that run channels, we have our own things that happen on the back end, and we have to unload, download, unpack, and work out what the collective messages and the energy is. Find it very interesting, some of the comments also as to really questioning the reasons why I do things. Well, number one, we are guides and we do get messages. Now, a couple of energy situations have been happening, and I do really feel, and I always am very accountable about sitting with it and saying to myself, okay, what part in this situation do I have as a sense of accountability and responsibility? What part am I co-creating in these dynamics? And you're probably wondering, what bloody dynamics are you talking about? Which is what we're going to discuss on YouTube here. I have got some downloads lately, and the first thing I did was talk to a beautiful spiritual friend of mine who is a coach, counselor, therapist, and guide, and we do talk together quite often. So big shout out to Adam, and thank you very much to him. And we have been really looking at, and I said, it's really interesting. I said, I'm very cautious, and I put this on Facebook. I'm very cautious about what I do put on social media. Anytime in my ascension process, I have had triggers, I will sit with that shit and I'll unpack it. And I do think it's really collective energy. I did really, and I have been for a while, especially in the collective on YouTube. I was saying this back in 2022, and North Node is moving into Aries. We're going to be having a conjunction on the 12th of March, 2023. And it's going to be Jupiter in Aries making a conjunction to Chiron in Aries. And what I have noticed in the collective, especially for light workers, empaths, is we tend to feel the energy ahead of time. And of course, I have mentioned with Pisces, there are going to be some moments where a lot of psychology is going to come up. So it could be anything to do with depression. Not that I like talking about these things, but they're really going to come up. Suicidal tendencies, feeling like there's no hope, that can come up. I do go back to, I think it was 2017, 18. And we, at that time, had Chiron and Pisces there. And there was a gentleman that I was coaching. And he also was a trained therapist. He also was working with individuals that had, addictive tendencies, problems. And I asked him at the time, during this process with Chiron and Pisces, have you had people fall off the bandwagon during this time? Where is the psyche? How are they really handling it? And he goes, oh, yeah, no, there's been a lot of people and they're really struggling. Very interesting that you say that. Why do you say that? And I mentioned the position of Chiron in Pisces. Now, it's not that Chiron will be in Pisces. If anything, for some of us, what it's going to be is it can be more difficult because suddenly we have this revelation. A lot of codependency is going to come up. A lot of patterns where people are going to maybe get upset, project, be in avoidance of a wound. These things are going to happen. And you're probably even seeing it in your own lives at this point in time, where it can be with your family members. It could be with your friendship groups, your co-workers. It could be with your clientele. And navigating that is going to be quite interesting. Like I said, empaths usually feel it 3 months before the transit. March is one of those big ones. And the way I can directly describe it is, if we have been in avoidance, I mean, yes, in astrology, you can see it in your chart, but it's almost assimilation. What you'll find is by the time March comes, it's going to be a bloody jerk. Okay, I'm just going to be honest. Nobody is your problem. These blockages, we're going to have these massive revelations that we are a common denominator, that there is a pressure point in our life. And, unfortunately, when empaths, Adam said this to me, dark is attracted to the light. My mother said this to me years ago. Why does shit keep happening, in a sense? And Why is the projection towards empaths? Oh, because you're strong. And yes, that's true, but it's also, especially if you put boundaries up, which at the moment I'm going to tell you, boundaries probably aren't going to work, because when we have triggers, nobody likes a reminder of their wound. Nobody likes a reminder of a flaw. And we all have them. That's the thing. So suddenly, you might have your mother, brother, sister, father, having dramas, and they're going through assimilation of their wounds. And, it's almost like I always say, we think we picture an image of a world, and that's our kind of universe. And to us, the only thing that exists is our world. Especially with Aries and Chiron, it is the wounded healer. And there's two ways it can play out. One can be a subconscious situation. One can be a 3D situation. So say it's a physical ailment, could be your health, and, you're really not taking care of yourself, and it's affecting you actually addressing situations in your life. It could be a pacifier to a degree. Another thing could be a psychological situation. So it's, look, somebody cheated on me, so therefore I just don't trust anyone. So that's two examples of how Chiron can play out. Now, with Jupiter making a conjunction to Chiron, Jupiter is a greater benefic. It's what we would deem as something actually that is quite spiritual, but it's quite positive. That doesn't mean to say in assimilation with the transit that it's going to come up that way. Initially, how it might play out is that you are pressed and a situation expands radically. So say that you're, hanging out with a bunch of people that are very, very toxic. Suddenly in that assimilation, it's going to be enlarged. Because it's a little bit like the, I think it's the Ten of Swords, or Ten of Wands, it's getting to the point it's unbearable. Ten of Swords. Got to drop those things down. Too much. So, we can see structures falling down. We can see, we talk about what's happening in the collective with the world. There's certain systems that aren't working. Ten of Swords. So these things theoretically were not manageable anyway. So in our lives, in the collective, we are all coming to that space. Mars and Gemini has been difficult. It's been there for about, you could say about 8 months, but really we'll say about 7. It's transiting out when we move into March. Now, that's not to say it's all hunky-dory. There's a reason why Mars and Gemini needed to be there. A is because come 2025, Uranus is going to be moving into Gemini. And so it's giving us that assimilation to go through it, to see those pressure points in those areas. Is it manageable? Does it need a lot of energy? Have we been up in our heads and thinking too much? Psychologically, a lot of people in the collective are tired. The questions I ask on the page is to better the page, if I so choose to ask those questions. Also, it is a fine line. There has been many channels that have as light workers, and we're going to all feel this at the moment. A lot of things that people don't know is light workers need a break too. Okay? And light workers are entitled to have boundaries, benchmarks. By no means do I have any care factor. I have many, many people that do subscribe to the channel, that are members in the channel, and they actually have their own channels. I have no ifs and buts about it. Transparency is always required. Have there been a chain of channels? And I thought it was really interesting because there's no, I think the revelation came up more so due to the fact that YouTube lets us have memberships, but we can't really alter settings. There's no disclaimers. There's no statements in it. It's basically, this is the cost, these are the benefits you can enter. And there has been, due to the transits, there is going to be a lot of copycatting. There's going to be a lot of, and this one, it happened a few months ago. I think Giggle mentioned it to me, and I'd followed this person before. And this individual had a membership, and the person's come in, they've copied the thumbnail, they've copied the content, and they've taken it. And not that I really give two hoots anyway. It's got nothing to do with that. It is a requirement that it's a little bit like if you're flatmating with an individual. You have a base level, which is, okay, these are the agreements and the terms and coming in here, which is, respect, integrity, making them a safe space. Like I said, I have several channels over the years that I have coached. They have created their channels. Going into this industry is very difficult. I did the calculation the other day and I was almost floored at what I have achieved in over the 7 years. And I don't know if you could call it achieved. I would call it a heavy weight to carry. Over the last 7 years, I have coached 250,000 clients. Now, when we do look at our own personal problems on a day-to-day, we go, shit, it's a lot. When we look at our ascension, we say to ourselves, good grief, that's a lot. The spiritual community is going to go through assimilation where they also will have to look after their mental health. And so it's huge, it's not just the hours that we have on YouTube, the energy that we bring free of charge, requesting one like on a video. It's also our personal lives, it's personal boundaries. It's, where to direct those requests, be it's inside the website or on YouTube, commenting on a video. Any video I go to, as a matter of fact, and I don't know why the algorithm works the way it does, but it really does. And the reason these things are coming up is because Lightworkers is going to be a huge, huge need. But at the same time, it can also be for the collective a huge change. We're going to be going through changes. There's going to be a reduction to a degree because Saturn's entering Pisces. So suddenly it'll be like there could be boundaries, there could be restrictions on us, there could be, maybe having to really challenge and deal with those things in different ways due to people's different needs. So we're forever evolving, but especially with Neptune in Pisces and Jupiter in Pisces, those things in the collective are going to come up. What else can I say? So yes, from an ascension point of view, a lot of you are going to experience, and you're probably thinking, gee, it's been hard for the last few months. Yes, it has been. Usually you go through that first so that you can anchor the energy in, and then you'll see in assimilation. And I remember back in 2017, 18, I said something will happen. And those of you that have followed me for a long time know I said this. Something's going to happen at a collective level to wake the collective up. And it could be something disastrous. And sure enough, we have seen, to a degree, some of those things. Pluto entering Aquarius, the Plutonian babies that are born into this era, which could effectively start from March 2023 onwards, although it will be dipping back into Capricorn again. Those children coming into the collective will be moving and birthing into times of radical change. And that will be their signature on this planet. There's Pluto in Libra. There's Pluto in Scorpio. Go and do your education on that and understand what each generation of Pluto, which is it's a 20-year cycle, roughly brings in an energy exchange to the planet. So each of us do have a very interesting signature that we do bring. And this new generation that's coming is really going to be birthing into radical changing times. They can have a little bit of PTSD, but they're going to be very different to what we are. They're going to have a lot of resilience. So we're going to see these trends. You're going to be going through a simulation. You can be feeling like you're going through the dark night of the soul. And then if you've done your work, and there's no competition, guys. It is not a competition. There are some people that, and I've always said this, and a lot of you know that, I would never say that I am ascended. Never. I wouldn't even... it's almost like blasphemy that, I have reached the pinnacle of my goal. Am I in self-awareness? 100%. When anything happens, be it it's a conflict, be it it's a drama, I will always double check myself. When I'm viewing an energy that I'm coaching or an individual in my tribe, I am listening to everything that is said and I can read between the lines. So I'm very mindful. Transits are great in a sense that you won't fall into victim consciousness because you'll go, FYI, X, Y, and Z is potentially going to pop off. And you can then, in your awareness, when that happens, you can go, oh, shit, a lot of channels I've visited have told me this. It's like the warning bell and you're not listening. It's like, I have warned you guys. There is going to be triggers. There is going to be projection. There is going to be narcissistic tendencies. And when you're in that simulation, if you had swept things under the carpet, and you're not a bad person if you have, it's your coping mechanism. I'm merely saying the transits pending have been preparing us for when the nodes move into Aries. Okay? It's first house placement. It's almost like suddenly you've got a whole bowl of dramas and they're in front of you and you're going, oh my goodness, I have to address these things. It's either going to be a physical ailment or a psychological situation that's going to block it. But the 12th, and even though it falls on the 12th of March, where some of that can be piping up, I still very much feel it's ongoing because the North Node hasn't shifted yet, which is pretty sad because it's already happening. But the North Node hasn't shifted. We're feeling Saturn and Pisces already. We're starting to see signatures of that wrap up of Pluto and Capricorn. And wherever you have Capricorn in your chart, something's coming to a head. It can alleviate it to a degree. The one thing I'm really noticing is because Saturn can link to bones and teeth, I've had a lot of people having issues with bones, with their teeth. Again, Pisces, psychology, stress, projection, unhealthy boundaries. I've been warning everyone. The shadow work. You need to learn to tune out of white noise. It's permission based. It sounds crazy. In your initial ascension stage, it's coming from maybe a person you're tuning into. All right, or they're tuning into you. Energy can travel, energy can bounce. It's like static on a carpet. You're walking through, you touch something, you're electrocuting it. That's static. So frequency is frequency. I did also say a couple of weeks ago the Schumann's going to spike. I know that we've had a lot of frequency coming in. When it was going up and down, it was pretty consistent, up and down, but it was pretty low. I still very much feel there's going to be a huge spike, which is going to cause collective consciousness to raise their vibration, but you're going to feel extremely foggy, fatigued, confused, disorientated, almost nauseated. Shadow work and psychic attacks are going to also happen. So if you've been in a low vibration, negative, projecting, trauma bonding with individuals, you're going to attract the same energy. You've got to be very careful about what you're entering into your frequency. It's your aura and it's permission based. Psychic attacks, you're going to see dead people. You're going to see things that you've never seen before and think you're going bloody crazy. It's part of the ascension process. Third eye is very strong. When it's opening, especially if you're having a lot of headaches at the moment and you're very fixed and you're feeling very negative, you need to feed that soul. You need to go, okay, what in my day can I physically do to take my vibration? And every single given day you have is yours. And so what we give attention to grows. Very Abraham Hicks. So if you're physically, hanging out with lower vibration and it's, yes, I have this energy, yes, I have that energy, you're also going to have different energy. And you have to acknowledge that. You're also having the sunshine and you're having that fresh air. And you can give yourself a psychological holiday to say, hey, I'm actually having a good moment. I'm going to remember this moment. I said to a person yesterday, I was very consciously in 2018 saying to myself and committing to myself I was going to live the best life I could physically have, and I was going to make it real. It wasn't going to be faked. It wasn't going to be put out there in propaganda to manipulate a situation. I was going to be completely living my truth of being very authentic. So if it was a moment in time I was having and there was beautiful sunshine and my body needed to rest and I'd take a photo, I knew I was going to be in that moment and very present that, yes, the whole world might be falling down, but I'm physically in this moment. And I have those photos on my Facebook page. And when I look at them, I know exactly what I was thinking at that moment. And it was my moment. And I think we can't fake these things. There was an image that my ex-husband had on the wall, and I would look at it so attentively. And it was a it was a monkey, funny enough, and it was fake it till you make it. And I truly don't believe that. You cannot fake things in life. If there's something you need to say to somebody, 100% say it. You're going to get more frustrated by wondering and thinking. You know, we're so guilty of getting into the ego and feeling we will be rejected, we will be misunderstood. But you're never going to know unless you risk it. And that's Aries and Chiron. That's a psychological related dynamic that you have a part in. And we all do have a sense of accountability of how we, and it's been literally coming up with clients, friends, family. It has been everywhere. I've even been talking to other channels. They have had similar situations going on. So this is very much collective consciousness. Light workers generally will, and empaths generally will, especially twin flames. You will attract a lot of drama. It just is. Okay. There's always a lesson in it. There's always a reason why it comes about. We're not perfect. We're not completely flawed either. We're just human, but we have a different perspective on things. We have an emotion. Hopefully, we're moving into emotional intelligence. What was the other thing? I listed down some things that I really wanted to bring to you. So yes, the triggers are definitely going to come. I think in a sense, boundaries are really going to need to be placed down very firmly. I've definitely noticed over the last few months, I've, you know, and I've even said it to twins. It's like, no, but I've told my twin this. Sometimes, honest to God, you have to re-articulate what you've already bloody said. And that just happens in life. It's really frustrating. Healthy boundaries, it could be, you know, and even in, you know, a sense of being human rights, for instance. I wrote this, let me open my page, and it was to do with human rights. They were base needs, and I'm just going to read some of those base rights. Where is it? The right to work in a just and favorable condition, the right to social protection, to an adequate standard of living, and to the highest attainable standard of physical and mental well-being. So people are entitled to have a private life. People are, you know, that's the boundary can be, contact me through the website. One thing I've had over the last 7 years is inquiries coming in different areas. Really, any business related dynamic is always going to be their website. Because ultimately, you know, every human being will have their own personal things going on in their life, and PMing essays is not acceptable. It's like, you know, somebody could have had a car accident and being PM'd a whole essay when there's memberships, when there's support groups that we do actually provide here on YouTube. That would be the fairest thing. It's like, just think before we deal. 100% I have had over the last few weeks, knowing I have clients in different places of the country and the world, I off the bat, you know, it's integrity. It's like, FYI, just a quality check. Are you okay? I have no drama with that. I have no drama with PMs of funny memes. But when it goes to the other side and there's trauma going on, the best place to go is the membership, which I pop in daily to. If I feel I need to actually support, I will jump in and do it there, or the website. And definitely, I have said over the last few months, don't let yourself get to that point where you're falling. It's too bloody late then. You know, have you ever had those moments where you're physically having a really terrible day and you're thinking, oh, you know, maybe I'll call that person who's going to really be mean to me. We've all done that, haven't we? We're like, oh, they'll tell me what a messed up person I am. So we know our limits. And that's where putting those boundaries up, hi, sweet, is really like, oh, no, too much. It's got to stop. And I'm not an unfair person. I promote channels. I will, at a drop of a hat, you know, place people in emergency bookings. I'm not insecure. This is not a competition in life, but I'm allowed to have healthy boundaries. I can have time out. I get in my Zen space. We have accountability as mediums, that we get our energy right, that we know our limit. And you all have to do the same thing and go, wow, am I reaching my limit right now? And I had said to you guys weeks ago, share Aries and Chiron. It's going to be messy, guys. So if in assimilation you're feeling like that, what is your action plan in preparation? What are you physically doing to protect yourself? You can't avoid it. It's coming. So how can you psychologically prepare yourself for the coming, I would say 3 years. It is 3 years. Big changes happening whether we bloody like it or not. Challenges emotionally and psychologically. Needing to create healthy boundaries. There's going to be a lot of narcissistic tendencies. Nobody likes to be the bad guy, but there has to. It's like any system in life. There has to be a structure. Everyone has a boss. You know, I've got a boss. YouTube's my boss. Theoretically, I've got my own business. It's very separate to YouTube. I work on YouTube as an advert, but my business is run through my website. It's a separate entity altogether. So I even have a boss. Where else? We may have a co-worker. You might be flatmating with somebody, and there's rules associated to that. There's structures in which we all live in, and there's rules associated to that, whether we like it or not. Otherwise, there'd be bedlam. There just would be. You know, a lot of times we say, oh, it'd be really great if everything fell down. Not really. It's being reconstructed, very Pluto in Capricorn, because the old systems simply weren't working. And it's painful to admit, but it's true. They're not relevant. Are we accountable in not addressing things if we observe a situation? Yes, I do believe we actually are. What do I call it? It's an accessory after the fact. Are we an accessory after the fact in society these days? Yes, I do think so. It's frustrating. You don't want to be the bad guy. It might be observing a situation happening in a tribe and you're going, wow, that's really not cool. I've got to be the bad guy here. I'm going to get really verbally attacked for that. But in your integrity, potentially it may be needing to address, or somebody else is going to address it. Anyone had an experience like that over the last few weeks? There's an element of accountability. So turning a blind eye doesn't mean it's not there. We have light and dark, and that's another thing we're going to have. There's not going to be ever perfect. We have to have dark and light. The dark motivates us to see our shadow. The light helps us understand that both polarities exist. There is change, and there's definitely going to be changes. I came across a channel, and I feel it's very collective energy. It was a pretty toxic channel, I'll be perfectly honest. Maybe what we could call as toxic is something that challenges a memory or a belief. Oh, I'm glad you do, Failstar. We were meditating upon that, weren't we? What do we call it? What do I call it? So, in a sense, this channel was interviews, and it was like a podcast. And it was masculines on one side. I was like, oh my God, this so reminds me of the North Node and Aries. Masculines on one side debating discrimination against males and, which there is on both sides. Both parties were right. But you literally saw on both sides the toxicity of both a feminine and a masculine to its core. I was like, wow. Because it's victim consciousness. Somebody's got to be right, but nobody wins a fight that way. Twin and I had a chat this morning. It was like, sometimes you may say to a person, the sky's blue today. No, it's not. It's bloody green. It's like, okay, well, number one, if we're both looking at the same sky, you might be colorblind. I don't know. Should we fight about that? Do we need to fight about that? Sometimes we'll get in our ego and think that somebody has, maybe been quite unfair to us in a behavioral sense. It's really not about you. That's emotional awareness. It's okay, this is not about me. It might have hurt me. It's very upsetting. And again, as a coach, and I'm sure Failstar has had it, I'm sure Angela has had it, in coaching, there is a lot of projection. We, as spiritual gurus, we eat a lot of shit. But we're allowed to detox as well. We're allowed as Zen space to unwind, to bring the best to the collective. It's very different being on the other side. I always say, look at the screen at the moment. We will never know until we walk a mile in another person's shoes, and we won't. But we do judge regularly. We judge things based on what we believe. There's a lot that goes into YouTube. There's the element of thumbnails, videos, tech, time management, uploading, downloading, algorithm, laws that are actually there, which a lot of channels don't know about. There's a lot of red tape at the moment relating to new laws coming up, especially with the transits in Aquarius, especially with Saturn and Pisces. For all things, because we are looking at media at this point in time as a taxable situation, which I can't talk to you about anything tax, legal, medical, legally. From my experience point of view, what I'm investigating and taking accountability as a business, yes, a sole trader, yes, I am looking at it. But a lot of people do not know. It's very messy at the moment in the collective. Very difficult thing to navigate. What other thing can I say? So number one is the triggers are going to come up. You do not need anything from anyone. You need to look at yourself as a world. You need to realize the only way you are going to be totally fulfilled is by healing. And sometimes, Dales, you can literally get so pissed off that it's taking so bloody long, but then say to yourself, I'm a bloody good investment. If that means I have a bad day and I can't forgive myself, well, that's silly. Don't. Take a moment, forgive yourself. Know your limit, but also keep doing the work on yourself, because you will be very grateful at the end of it. You will have a very peaceful, very mindful, very self-aware life, and you'll never be afraid again. And we are moving into times where we're going to have to challenge those things, a lot of those things. So the live on the Friday for a health day for myself, to get myself recharged, and my guides have come through based on this, is we are going through a simulation to check where we're at. That will mean the next live is the following Friday. If you need the support, there's the membership hub. If you need the support, there are all the other videos that will still be up. It's 1 week only. It's to check where you are energetically and how you handle the dynamic. Best free way to do it. Be in self-awareness, clear your homes, be aware of your communication style with individuals, take accountability. If you feel vibrationally triggered, go into hermit mode for a day. It's all good, but you can't hide forever. Because we need to create those boundaries in life and say something is for us or something isn't. Does that make sense? A lot of us are going to be looking at our diet and nutrition. How are we spending our time? I even had a chat to my cousin in England yesterday, and it was funny because we've got Cancer in our chart. My partner's got Cancer in the chart. I've got Libra as well. We're 12 houses, right? And we're having a chat about the old dynamic of Cancer Capricorn energy. And that was the expectation society had. Cancer will take their shirt off their back, put it on the ground, and let you walk over them. But empathy prevents growth, right? And it doesn't mean that you won't have a problem if somebody empathizes. If somebody empathizes, it just means you're staying stagnant. We do empathize, but there's still the work to do. It's like, oh, yeah, did you feel this? It's like then we have to go back home and we're still looking at the same subject matter. We're feeling this frustration inevitably of stagnation. The key to it is inside ourselves. But it is looking at the things and saying, okay, the goals I set out to do. Number one, the good part of Saturn and Pisces is Saturn and Pisces can help us achieve our dreams over the next 2.5 years. So you're going to have a revelation of what that system is and how to achieve that. And it's coming, okay? Especially with the moon in Pisces. But don't get delusional. Be realistic, because Jupiter is going to make those things bigger, so we might bite off more than we can chew. And go, oh, I can do that. It's so easy. And observation is different than putting something into practice. So it's there's some things you're willing to, and I think one way that it was articulated is with Chiron, for instance. How can you suffer temporarily to achieve your goal? It's a little bit like, okay, I've got a lot of weight on me. I need to exercise. My bones hurt when I'm doing it. But, you know, at some point, my stamina, my endurance, it's going to pick up and that's not going to feel so painful. And then I'm closer to that goal and I'm achieving that dream. Short-term pain, long-term gain. Does that make any sense? That's one example of chiron. So it can be a physical ailment, a psychological ailment. But one of those things, wherever you have Aries in your chart, you can also look at Scorpio. Aries and Scorpio, you will have a wound associated to that in that area, and it's going to be magnified. It's like a Zondexes. Yeah, expansion, big, problematic. How many of you have noticed situations happening in your life in relation to that? I think I was talking to a couple of people privately, and it was to do with the fact that, you know, in life and transits, and that's another reason why I study astrology, is because it takes the personal out. You know, I can guarantee you, even though we look at love, in a health pyramid, when you grew up, when you were a baby, you wanted milk. You wanted warmth and shelter. There are essential needs we want every day. Okay? You cannot tell me the only problem you have at this point in your life is love. It's not. Because in love, right, the attachment in the spiritual energy in the ascension process is going to come up in your star signs. It's going to be, suddenly if you have a transit hitting your career sector, just one example, well, you know, are you going to be looking at love in the same light? You're going to be going, shit, Houston, we've got a problem. Why? It's because all the energy is pointing really hard hitting on that one area. There could be disputes. You could be maybe kicked out of a job, lose a job, lose finances, or have a lot of weight on that because of a transit. Okay? So at that point in time, I can guarantee you, you're going to be in the thick of it. You know, it's like Mercury retrograde. God, Mercury retrograde. Bad enough at the fact that we've had so much Gemini energy at the moment. Not that there is anything wrong with Geminis, but Virgos and Geminis, and Mars has been retrograde. Then it was sitting there for about 7 months. It's exhausting. So Virgos and Geminis, you guys have been in the thick of it. And it is third eye, and it is the war energy. There can be ego for all of us, anger and passivity. And it's like a scale. There's a fine line we need to balance. So the transits show you the weather forecast. They also show where their ascension's coming. One of the dates you need to be aware of is the 12th of March. The 7th of March, to my belief, Saturn moves into Pisces. You're going to feel it already. Saturn and Pisces, I've talked on the previous astrology video, some of my predictions, even on the last twin flame video I hung about. And I discuss things. I will always answer your general energy free of charge. As soon as it's personal, it's business. That's the boundary. And that is because I'm one person. And over 7 years, I have seen over 250,000 people. Point blank zero. Okay? And time management, having to be accountable. For my patrons who keep this channel afloat, I deeply appreciate you. You make this channel possible. Without you, it would not be possible. So it's systems, it's structures, having to, and you're going to have to do this in your own life. You're going to find you're going to have things popping off. They're going to be in the Capricorn area. Aries is going to amplify that. Oh, heck, I've got this popping off on this side here too. Karmic closes are coming. Now, don't get into that headspace of feeling, and we do this, that a situation that is outside of you, that if another energy was eliminated from that situation, that you'd never have any dramas in your life. It's not real. You will look at karmic energy differently later. At this point in time, some of you may be feeling the only way you can have your ice cream is for that karmic situation to completely be eradicated. But then you're going to be paranoid of another one. And you need to understand inside of your power, you can say, well, no, that's not negotiable. That is your power. We underestimate power in how we use it. You having your power can say, you know, if you have the status quo in a twin relationship, in any relationship, could be with a job situation. I can guarantee you the last individuals I've coached, we don't just talk about twin flame path. We talk about everything, down to your career, down to your wellness, down to transits, down to any codependency and patterns coming up, because they're doing the work on themselves. And that's why they're moving. I have helped individuals move through careers where they've had psychological blockages and they really have felt they could never leave that. And then they move through it, and now they say to me, gospelly, I'd never do that to myself again. I'd hear the warning signs. I would listen to my soul, and I would start taking direct steps, because we grow spiritually, psychologically. It's a little bit like you burn your hand on the stove. Well, next time I'll wear a glove. I'm not going to avoid it. I need to bloody cook. I mean, you could go organic if you want to. That's a choice, though. If it's avoidance because of a wound, you're not living your full life. It's futile. So don't be scared to have conflict. Conflict happens. People love, people forgive, things move forward. But own your part in things. Take accountability. If you want to say something to somebody, reach out. There's no competition in who's right and who's wrong. I remember going down the rabbit hole in my spiritual connection, and yes, hurt was done to me. Now, is it ego for me to say, well, then it's for you to contact me? Pretty much it is, because it really doesn't matter. Not really. Because if you're still thinking about it, you have power too. It goes both ways. If you feel that person is your solution and they're going to take you to your destiny, not really. You know, I truly believe, like Abraham Hicks, if something is destined for you, when it's right, when it's ready. Rejection is universe's protection, right? The oceans will split for you, and your runway will be totally clear, and it will just open those gates for you, because it's preordained, it's predestined, and it's divinely guided. I don't manifest these days. Why? Because I trust in universe. Universe knows what I need to learn. Even the hard lessons, when universe kicks my ass, it is there for me to be humbled. It's there for me to see a different view, and we all are going to go through this. So on a short note, the live on Friday is not personal. My guides have asked me to allow it for you guys to sit with the energy. You'll still get the masculine, feminine, karmic. You won't get the joint connection. The next live will be the following Friday, and we'll see where the energy's at that point. Sitting with that vibration, if you need that support, we have the Members Hub. We have my channel. We have, the website for emergency bookings. Sit with the energy, be prepared, do a crystal grid, clean your house, get your aura upgraded, be in self-awareness, be cautious of how you communicate, and be ready for the incoming energy. I will be recording the videos today for the star signs. As soon as they're done, I will share them to the members, and hopefully then open to the public, and that can prepare you for March 2023 and what I see coming through for your star sign. I'll try and give you the best tips I possibly can to help you with it individually. If you do need any further support, you can come through to the website.